Hi everybody, it's Pat Gillis here, and this weekend I was at a virtual conference, and there was a speaker there. Her name is Kathy Hayes, and she actually teaches people how to sew corsets and to do other sort of historical dressmaking things and everything. It was really interesting, and you might have guessed it was not a conference about historical dressmaking, but she did say a few things that gave me pause. And one of the things she talked about was how with beginners in any discipline at all, they require the most support. And I thought, yeah, that makes a lot of sense because in our business, when we start beginners, every rider has an assistant with them, and so it does take a lot of staff and there is a lot of support, and it's just nice for the rider to be able to figure out how to control their body and their position and do all those things without having to worry about controlling the horse. So that's how we start our beginners, and I can see what she means about it requiring a lot more support. And then the second thing she mentioned was that the beginner is at a great advantage because he's like a clean slate. Like, he doesn't know anything yet. And so, as I always tell my students, the easiest thing in the world is to learn to do something correctly the first time, because it's hard to learn something no matter what it is. You might as well learn it the right way. And I mean, if you have any kind of proficiency in a sport, it takes a lot of discipline to sort of step back from that and tear everything down and relearn things so that you get to come out on the other side as a better practitioner of something that you were already knowing how to do. So, I admire that a lot, and it's a lot of a harder row to hoe, so to speak. So the beginner has an advantage there too. But the final thing she said, and this is the part that gave me pause, was that she said that the beginner is the most likely to quit, to give up, to lose hope, and just feel overwhelmed and frustrated. And I thought, that's really interesting because in my experience in 35 years, I can count on one hand how many kids have tried riding and actually stopped, like gave up after the first one or two times. And I think it's because once I assume that people who come to riding have a fondness for horses anyway. And when they come to it, once they start to learn about the horse, and for our people, learning about the horse comes even before getting on the horse. Once they start to sort of appreciate that, they're pretty much sold at that point. But having said that, I know people who've told me that they tried this riding thing years ago and it never worked for them. They weren't interested at all, and that's probably what gave me such pause with Kathy's point. I think, and this is especially true with children, I find, but if they come to the sport where they're not taught to respect or appreciate the horse, or they're taught that the horse is just a tool to get them to something that they aspire to do, I think without building that connection and showing kids how magnificent horses really are, I think that you lose something there. And a lot of times kids may just say, you know what, there's easier things to learn than this, so I'm going to try a different sport. In my experience, when a rider is exposed to the magnificence that is horses, and they start to realize how generous and wonderful and kind they are, and how they strive to understand what it is that we're asking, even when it's really a garbled kind of beginner attempt at giving some kind of a signal. When people start to appreciate that about horses, it changes the dynamic, I think, a lot in this sport. And all of a sudden it's about a partnership and about creating a bond, and it's like working with a friend. So even when the sport becomes physically or even psychologically demanding, the horse lover comes back because it's more than that now. And they found a connection. That's really a difficult thing to explain to somebody who's never had a thing about horses, or maybe who was taught that horses are just a tool, just an instrument that we use to get where we're going. There's that great quote by Ralph Waldo Emerson where he says something about riding isn't a gentle habit that can just be picked up and set down, but it's a grand passion. I won't butcher the quote. I will find it for you and put it in the video because I don't want to ruin that. But it's a great quote. But I think that all of us who've been either riding all our life or used to ride and have come back to it, or even any of us who are just embarking on this grand passion, when we start to understand who the horse is, we're sold. And it becomes almost an obsession, I think. Anyway, that's all I got this week. If you're watching this anywhere besides at our blog, which is at ismyhorsehappy.com, go on over there, scroll down, and leave me a message. And in the meantime, enjoy your obsession. Remember to thank your horse, and we'll see you next week.